Todd Coley here with the Texan News Sports. This is Casey Hogan, Assistant Athletic Director and voice of the Texans. Casey, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Good to be here. I'm not used to being on TV.
I hope you like it. This is a nice studio we got here.
It is nice.
Now, over the summer, Tarleton inked a six-figure deal with Ford to rename the Tarleton Sports Network. And just tell us a little bit about that, what it's going to accomplish for the school and how it's going to get our name out there.
Sure. We used to have the Tarleton Athletic Radio Network, Todd, and the concept there was to build up a bunch of radio affiliates. Well, most people now, when they're listening to a broadcast, a lot of them listen on the internet. So the concept behind the Tarleton Sports Network was to rebrand all of our webcasts online, all of our radio broadcasts. Anytime we have a volleyball game might not be on the radio, but it's on the webcast, and we'll have a broadcaster calling it. So we rebranded all of our multimedia efforts in the department to the Tarleton Sports Network, and we knew we needed to get it kicked off. We needed a big-time name to kind of give it some relevancy. And so we went out and with the help of Doug Montgomery here at Techstar Ford in town, secured a deal with the North Texas Ford dealers. It's a 5-year deal, $100,000, and so the network is now called the Tarleton Sports Network, presented by the North Texas Ford dealers. And I think it's important because that kind of gave us some buy-in right from the start.
Now, talk a little bit, you mentioned the Ford dealership in town here kind of had something to do with it. Talk a little bit about what goes into getting a deal with a big name like Ford like that.
Well, the toughest thing is how do you get in the door? How do you get in the door of the North Texas Ford dealers? Tarleton Athletics has been very successful here in town. We have almost every business and corporation in town that is a supporter of ours. But the one thing we saw an opportunity was to get outside of Stephenville and try to ink some deals with national and statewide groups. But how do you get in the door of a Ford Motor Company? How do you get in the door of a Verizon Wireless? And so, luckily, Doug Montgomery, who owns the Ford dealership here in town, is on the North Texas Ford board. So he's got a vote on that board, and we put together a proposal, and it takes months. I mean, it probably took 4 to 5 months to put this thing together. A lot of going back and forth and negotiation, and so Doug brought it before the board, and the board voted, and I think it passed unanimously, and it was a real big step for us. It was one of the first deals that, believe it or not, Ford had done at the collegiate level. If you go to Cowboy Stadium in Arlington, they've got Ford everywhere, and that's North Texas Ford dealers, and they do a lot with the Mavericks and the Dallas Stars. But this is one of the first collegiate deals that they had inked, so it was definitely a big deal for us.
Now, I know you talk about getting all the streams out on the internet so people can listen on there. I know you have some numbers for us. Go over some of how many people are listening to these games when we're away and stuff like that.
Do you have a calculator? Because I don't know if I can.
I definitely can't do it off the top of my head.
I wasn't very good at algebra here at Tarleton, but when we pulled the reports, and it's always amazing to see how many people are actually listening, because you never know. And this is a new radio station for us. We're now on 90.5 FM. We've been on a commercial station here on town. We're now on the student station, which gives us a bigger signal that gets all the way to Fort Worth. We have our own Listen Live link now. We used to have to go through the radio station. Now you go through tarletonsports.com/listen live. And so Nathan Burrell and I ran the reports. Our first radio broadcast at West Texas, we had 1,434 people listen just online. That's not on the radio, just online. Kind of a mind-boggling number there. You go to our first football game. Now, when we have a home athletic event, if it's a volleyball game, any home athletic event, we're going to webcast that game for free online. And of course, the football games, they put our radio broadcast behind the video. And there was 2,700 people that listened to either the radio broadcast or the webcast of that football game against Midwestern. 2,700 people just online. So it really, as kind of the creator of this concept, it really made me pleased to see that people have bought into this. And you never want to do a broadcast and look at the numbers and there's 8 people, your mom, grandma, ex-girlfriend, and your cousin listening. 2,800 people. It really kind of put some relevancy behind this whole idea.
Now, 2,800 people. What kind of exposure? What can Tarleton students expect for that exposure to do for the university?
Well, I told Dr. DeTavio and Dr. McGregor and Coach Reisman this. This might be the first time someone ever is exposed to Tarleton. They might be going online to see their son play football, or a nephew or a relative, or it could just be someone that doesn't know anything about Tarleton and they're just watching a game. And so it's real important that the quality of your broadcast is high. You don't want somebody's first impression of Tarleton to be a bad broadcast, poor video quality, or the broadcast doesn't work. So I think for the students to realize that this is important, because really athletics is the front porch of the university, in the sense that a lot of times someone's first trip to campus is for an athletic event. And a lot of times it's not even a physical trip to campus. It's just going to our website or listening to a radio broadcast. And we want the impression of Tarleton to be a high quality one. So that's important. It's also an important revenue stream for us. I mean, you look around this studio, all this equipment costs a lot of money. Well, we're broadcasting. Last night we broadcast Midnight Madness from the gym, and we've got wireless cameras, and we've got TriCasters, and we've got the largest HD video board in the conference, and that stuff costs money. So the network gives us ability to go out and raise revenue, so then in turn we can afford all this fancy stuff.
Now, at the press conference during the summer, I know Athletic Director Lon Reisman and President Ottavio were there, and they both spoke. They talked greatly about this contract and how excited they were. How does it feel for you? You know, you talked about you were kind of in the groundwork for this, to have them behind you so much like that.
Well, I asked for a raise, but it didn't. but no, it means a lot. You know, you're in this business. Really, at the end of the day, you're in this business of athletics to give student athletes the tools they need to be successful, and you want to win, and you want them to do well. And you know, you look at athletic departments across the country. I mean, there is a direct correlation between being able to raise money and raise revenue and being successful. It's just, if you don't like that, it's just the way it is. So, you know, it felt good to be able to do this for the athletic department. I think this will open a floodgate to new deals. You know, I'd like to get a wireless company in here to do a major marketing deal with us, and I think this Ford deal kind of is groundbreaking and kind of opens that door. And for me personally, it was rewarding, but you know, you're in this not for yourself, and you know, I really want this to be something positive for our athletic department, our student athletes, and it's the fan experience as well. You know, I went to Texas A&M and met with a few of their athletic administrators, and they said, you know, everything that we do is to enhance the fan experience. And being able to do this, you know, now with wireless cameras, now with that HD video board, it really does enhance the fan experience, and I think that's important.
Now, as voice of the Texans, what have you kind of seen as changes between your broadcasts now that you're on the bigger network?
Well, I think the big thing is the previous station we were on, we split the station with Stephenville High School. So there was a lot of times where we had conflicts, and Stephenville High School had been there before us, so their contract preceded ours. So you're always worried about what station you were going to be on, and that confuses your fans when they don't know what signal. The good thing about with being on 90.5, we're on 90.5 every Tarleton broadcast of men's basketball, women's basketball, football, and we'll have some select softball and baseball games on there. So I think the biggest thing is just having that continuity. The signal's better, 90.5. That signal goes all the way to Fort Worth. I mean, I've had people text me and say, Casey, we're listening to a Tarleton game in downtown Fort Worth, and that's pretty cool because the previous station we were on, we had a great relationship with them. They were great to work with, but you know, when you got outside of Granbury, you lost the signal. So I think those are really the two biggest advantages we have now, being on 90.5. We have new talent. This year we went out and hired a couple new broadcasters on our network. I'm really excited about our new women's play-by-play voice, Kelton Weens. He's, I think, a real rising star in the broadcasting industry, and to have him on board is really going to help me out.
Now, kind of moving away from the network, just since you are the voice of the Texans, give me a highlight. What has been one of your favorite calls as voice of the Texans?
Well, I mean, that game on Saturday, we scored 80 points against Kingsville, 11 touchdowns. That was pretty special. I would say that it's always fun to call a championship game, and I've been able to call back-to-back men's basketball conference championship games, and those have been a lot of fun. So I would put those at the top of the list. About 6 or 7 years ago when I first did this, I did a stint doing the voice of the Texans, then I left and got into politics, and now I'm back. My first stint, we played Abilene Christian, and I think the game was 72-65. We lost on homecoming, and some of my play-by-play clips got on ESPN, so I thought that was kind of neat. But I'm waiting for that national championship game, so that'd be the pinnacle to call.
There you go. Now, how is it that you got involved in? I know you went to Tarleton. You were a pretty popular face around here during your time as a student.
Yeah, I don't know about it. I'd go there. There might be some people that disagree.
Well, some people thought you were popular.
Yeah, no.
So how was it you got involved in what you're doing now?
That's a good question. I was really involved in agriculture education and FFA, and did a lot of public speaking, and I did a lot of stuff on the radio for agriculture, and I really thought that it would be I love doing radio, and I thought it would be a better avenue to go the sports route. So I just tried to get a gig in sports, and one day I was sitting up at Chili's, and a guy that used to work at a radio station here in town came up to me and he said, Casey, do you still want to do sports? I said, heck yeah. He said, come in on Monday. This is my senior year in college, senior year, and so I went in and interviewed. They needed a sideline reporter for Tarleton football, so I got that job. They moved me up even before the first game into the booth, so I became the color guy. And then after the first year of doing women's basketball play-by-play and color commentary for football, then they hired me as the full-time voice of the Texans. And so I did that for 2 years. But at the time, it wasn't a full-time gig, and you know, you got to put food on the table. You need benefits. So I had a political science degree, so I had the opportunity to go up to Washington, D.C. and work on Capitol Hill, which was an amazing experience. I'm so glad I did it. And then I came back a little over 2 years ago. They needed a radio play-by-play voice and a fundraiser in the department, and I was ready to come home. So kind of a strange path, but you never know where life takes you. So.
You got back to Tarleton. That's all that matters, right?
It's a great place to be. So.
All right. Well, Casey, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you shedding a little light on this new deal with Ford and what it's like being the voice of the Texans.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for your time. All right.
Sure.